Okay, Thunder Wizards. All right, so yesterday I had an interview with Leak Project, a very successful alternative YouTube channel. And so he was very gracious and allowed me to record it on my end as well. He's already published his version of it on his YouTube channel, and so I'm going to now stream the whole thing for you live. It's easier for me to do that than it is to try and upload the whole. We talked for a long time, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and stream that. I have to mute the first 40 seconds because it's he and I back and forth, and I'm not sophisticated enough to be able to edit it. So I'm just going to mute that first 40 seconds. And then when the actual thing starts, I'm just going to let it run. You guys are free to write down whatever comments or questions you have because I won't be stopping and starting to answer questions. But there it is. So it's raw and uncut, and let's just go ahead and get started with that. Let me hurry up and make sure I know what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to turn that on. Is that the way I want to do this? Hang on, I don't want to do it that way. I don't know what's happening there. That's not what I want to do. This is what I want to do. All right, so that's this. This is the full uncut interview with me and Leak Project. All right, there I did that, thunderwizard.com. And now I'm going to do
Feel free to do
this,
so,
and
and
I
or I
am
can just
going
send you the.
to mute that, start the thing here. So, as I said, this is my interview with Leak Project, and I am hopefully muting it so you guys can't hear it. And as soon as that 40-second timer goes off, then I'll go ahead and let us listen to it. Full uncut. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure there's a delay there. So forgive me for, we've got another 16, 15. I really enjoyed this interview. I really like, by the way, if you guys have channels that you would like to see me get interviewed on, let me know because I'll contact them and tell them to interview me. So, all right, there we go. Stop. Stop. All right, I'll just go ahead and get this started here. All right, here we go.
Duality of reality is fascinating. It seems as if we are spiritual beings living in physical vessels right now, or at least this experience is more of a dense reality, which is interesting because when you read through a lot of the ancient scriptures, especially the Gnostic stuff, it does describe how we've kind of been taken away from grace in a sense. And I wonder if a lot of these rituals and workings and magic and shamanism and energy work, if that's kind of designed to bring us back into our highest self. And what's your take on that? And thank you for the opportunity. This should be a good time.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to come on to your show. I would love to answer that question. Um,
Great.
Ritual is actually a science that we've forgotten. Starting around 2,000 years ago, um, our society moving into this like giant empire mindset. And in order to have an empire, the best way to do that is to get people disconnected from, all the power that they have. And so that's, religion came in and started eating away at that. But briefly, let me explain to you how ritual works and why it does why it's so powerful. First thing is that we have three major energy centers in the body. This is our conscious mind, would be here. We have our super conscious mind, or our higher self, and then our lower self. I'm touching my navel right now. Is our lower self, and that would be our unconscious mind. Your reality is created from your unconscious mind, and positive affirmations are a really great thing. They help you get into a great mindset. They give you a great attitude. But when it comes to being able to actually go in and magically create your world, it has limitations. So our ancestors, what they would do is they would do ritual. Now, ritual involves all kinds of symbolism, all kinds of energy work, all kinds of things that the unconscious mind responds to. So if you've ever trained a dog, you know that dogs love to be told what to do. And if you don't tell them what to do, you don't give them some kind of boundaries, then they just start tearing up the house and, pooping and peeing everywhere and barking and screaming. But if you train them and you tell them what to do, they end up being really powerful friends and will protect your house. And all animals will do this. So your unconscious mind is like a dog. And the way you train it is you give it commands. And the commands are when you do ritual. So when, let's say, for instance, you were to go out into the moonlight and you were to face a certain direction, and if you wanted to focus on, for some people, the idea of deities might be a little strange, but if you look at deities in terms of being projections of yourself. So let's say you wanted to focus on your power and your strength to go and accomplish things. You might worship a Mars deity. So you would go and you would, under the moon, you would do some kind of a sacrifice, maybe, pour a libation. Anything that you do that has some kind of symbolic significance, the unconscious mind listens to. Like when your dog, if you feed your dog at 5 p.m., 4:59, that dog is sitting there waiting for that food, waiting for the bowl to come down. When you start doing any kind of ritual, your unconscious mind does that. And the great thing is that we're built this way. So even if this isn't something somebody's done their whole life, the unconscious mind knows exactly what to do. And rituals include things like getting up at the same time every day and having your coffee and going for your run. Anything that becomes a pattern in the unconscious. So bottom line is we want to reprogram our unconscious mind. And we are programmed. When you're born, your parents program you. You're a father, right? So you program your kid by giving them rules to live and how to function, and you teach them. You're giving them programming, hopefully, so that when they grow up, they can self-parent and go out in the world and be successful. But some parents aren't so good at that, and they give bad information to kids. They give false information and false programming, and then that's when you have people who can't function in life, and they can't seem to make any money. They can't seem to be healthy. They can't seem to get good relationships. So ritual is one shamanic tool that you can use to literally go in and reprogram all of that. And then from a spiritual perspective, the understanding is that your entire world, even this mouse here for my computer, is actually continuously being created from my unconscious mind. And the same is true for you. And we sort of take our universes that we've created, and when we come together, our universes merge, and then we go off and do all that kind of thing. So the unconscious mind is a projector that we can program in order to create our life. In order to do that successfully, we have to do all kinds of internal work. This is where the meditation comes in, and this is where things like energy work, like Qigong, comes in, and these kinds of things, so that we can have the power and the ability to really structure ourselves and take full control of our lives. And that, for me, is really what shamanism is about, is to take full control over all aspects of your life and to live in harmony with everything, including physical as well as the non-physical. So I tried to smash in as much as I could in that introduction to answer your question.
No, that's great. Thank you. Perfect cliff notes. And I think you put that together brilliantly. And also, I want to know about the types of meditation practices somebody could take to achieve this. And then we can maybe get even deeper into manifesting the subconscious into a reality, essentially. So, like, what are different meditation practices that you take and do, and maybe give the audience some exercises that they could use as well?
Sure. Well, I won't go through all the long list of stuff that I've done. If somebody hasn't done any kind of meditation before, the easiest meditation is just breath, just to breathe long and deep. And there are different breath patterns that you can use. If you breathe, like really fast, that'll do something. But basically, the easiest one, is just take your hands, put the right over left, put them over the navel center, wherever you're comfortable, and just breathe in through the nose. Hold it for a couple of seconds. Exhale. Anybody does that? I mean, we do it all the time. Whenever somebody's upset, they always go. That's the body's way of trying to balance itself and get you into a meditative state. So that's the easiest one. The more powerful ways would be like doing mantra meditation. A mantra is, like Om Namah Shivaya or Om Mane Padme Hum. Some of the ones that people know. Just the Om sound is a meditation, and those are great because they get into the unconscious mind, and they're like an antivirus program that goes in and starts to take all of the bad thought processes and patterns that we have, and actually that's why people become more aware when they do mantra meditation. Energy meditation is called Qigong. It's spelled Qigong, and it means energy work or breath work. And so that is done sometimes just with sitting and doing specific mudras and doing breath meditation, or you see people doing Tai Chi in the park, this kind of a thing. This is Qigong, and this directly accesses the energy field of the body and allows the energy field of the body to tap directly into the infinite life force energy of the universe. So these are just some different ways. Of course, there's the typical way of emptying the mind. Now, I can't do that. My mind is constantly going. So if I try and sit and just empty my mind, for me, that doesn't work. That's why I've learned all these different energy techniques and meditation techniques, because I need help. I need more energy to come in. And so the end result of those kinds of meditations, Qigong, mantra meditation, breath work, is then you do get to that place of peace and emptiness. But for me, I'm an energy junkie. I like feeling energized. And so I like to do any kind of energy work that fills me with either some kind of chi energy or kundalini energy, so that I can feel alive and powerful. That's my thing. So hopefully that wasn't too long of an
No,
answer.
this is great. Absolutely. And I'm looking right now on your YouTube channel, Real Esoteric Spirituality Without All the Nonsense. The universe is not what you've been told. On the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, you go into depth and real techniques of shamanic journeys. So talk to us about that. Take us on a shamanic journey, or how would one actually go through that shamanic process? Always been fascinated with that.
Yeah, excellent question. So there are all different kinds of ways, again, to do shamanic journeys. The most common and well-known is if you take a drum, and the typical, quote, Native American sounding drum sound, pum, 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 pum. There's actually some research that's been doing, and I've got a good friend out here who actually is researching this, that frequency of bum, 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 bum actually activates the brain, and I can't tell you what brain wave pattern it locks into, but it puts you into a shamanic state of mind. And so that has been the way that it's been done for centuries. And every culture in the world has some form of that. So that would be one way. If you don't want to get a drum and do that, then all you have to do is go online. You can go on YouTube and type in shamanic drum beats and just put on your headphones. And here's the thing to do. In order to get a good shamanic journey, you have to have a clear intent. Now, the intent should be connected to something that you really need and something you really want. Some people are very good at just going into a shamanic trance and having an experience. Other people, it's not so easy. But traditionally speaking, shamanic journeying is an invention that humans discovered, I would say probably tens of thousands of years ago, in order to survive. So the need to survive creates an intensity. That intensity is what fuels the shamanic journey. So you can just listen to those drum beats, and let's say, you want to figure out, what am I supposed to do for a living? Some people, that's one of the biggest things they struggle with. They have some job they don't like and they want to be able to make more money. So that intense need of trying to find your path in life, you could start with a journey to, say, meet with a power animal. That's another typical one. Now, in my native ancestral tradition, which is Norse, my ancestors were Norse, they had a practice called sitting out, which basically means going and doing, going out in nature and waiting for some entity or some being to call on you. And they believed that you were born with what's called a fetch spirit, which means your power animal, and that everybody has one. They're born with one. So if you do that and you listen to some drum beats, and if you have that intention of, please show me what I'm supposed to do for a living, and you ask to meet with your fetch animal, some kind of animal will come up to you, in your mind. And then you can ask that entity, that whatever it is, if it's a wolf or it's a snake or a bear or whatever it is, you can say, I want your strength, I want your power, guide me to my your spiritual teacher. So these are the kinds of things that people normally start out with when it comes to shamanic journeys. There's more advanced techniques where you can go in and heal somebody, do all kinds of other things, gather information. But the bottom line I want to say about shamanic journeys is that shamanic journeys, while they're entertaining, they're really about getting information from the spirit world that you use in the physical world. So it's a really valuable tool for survival. Anyway, there's my answer to that question.
It's interesting. Let me jump in on that, because a few years ago, I tried Salvia divinorum, which was something that I could go buy at the store, actually. So I didn't think it was going to be nearly as intense as it was. I did know it was going to be intense, and I did it for a shamanic purpose. I wanted to have an out-of-body experience and learn from the spirit world. And I've had natural out-of-body experiences before, not even intentionally, where, I was going to sleep, I popped out of my body and it freaked me out. And it really gave me a whole other understanding about who we are. It made me feel better about who we are, knowing we're more than our physical bodies. But when I did that Salvia divinorum, I saw something that I, to this day, feel could be the Yama. If you're familiar with the Yama, or for example, the Bhava Chakra is the ancient Hindu wheel of destiny that has the animal kingdom, the demigod realm, the diva realm, the human realm, the ghost realm, the hell realm, etc. And there's like this entity looking over the entire will, and it's called the Yama. And this entity's also talked about in Gnostic texts and different teachings. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about? And if you are, what would the Norse tradition be to that entity that kind of oversees people before they make it to the next level?
That's an excellent question. I want to ask you, do you know how many worlds there were in that chakra? Was there
And is it the Bhava Chakra? Yeah. Well, actually, here, let me give you this is a modern version of the Bhava Chakra right here. This is a modern version that I had painted out. But the old versions you can find on Hindu temples and stuff, 5,000-6,000 years old. This is the Yama that basically overlooks the will. But inside of the will, you've got like the hell realm, the diva realm, the demigod realm, the human realm, the animal realm, and the ghost realm. And this is within the will, and there's another will within it, and another will within it. And basically karma is keeping everything attached. But the only way you can get out of this will, and this is like total recycle will. You can be recycled in all these different, based on your karma. If you're a real bad person, maybe you'll come back as in the hell realm or whatever, and work out your karma and move back up. And the only way out of this thing is in the human realm. And but I saw this entity, man, when I did that journey, and I'm wondering what the version would be, or what the details would be in Norse tradition, because the Gnostics talk about it, and obviously different religions mention it.
That's extremely interesting. I had not heard of that, and that excites me a lot to hear about that. So, and what's most exciting to me about that is what you said, is that the way out is through the human realm. That's really interesting, because one of the things that I spend time teaching people on my channel, and by the way, I have a question, I do question and answer videos, so if people want to ask me questions just like that, they can come on to my live Q&As. But in the Norse tradition, okay, so I'm wearing what's called an Aish Yalmer. It means helm of awe. So this is a symbol that's used for all kinds of things. It's best known for a symbol that drives away negativity. But you see here, this is also a chakra. By the way, this is a very ancient Indo-European symbol. This is actually, if you can find it basically in any culture in the world, but this exact symbol is found in ancient Vedic as well, and it's called the Ashtanga Yantra, and it has the same meaning. It means to drive away negativity. So we're talking, this is a symbol that's got to go back 50,000 years to the first Indo-Europeans. And they had this symbol then. So in the center would be what's called what we would know it as Middle Earth, the middle yard, Midgard. This is where the human being realm is. And you can see all of the branches of the other worlds come and meet there. So it's called the middle fortress, because if we were to be impacted by all of the energy of all these other worlds at the same time, it would just be it would obliterate us. This is why shamans, have this, they go crazy, right? They have to go through an initiation. It's because they have access to all of these worlds. It drives them crazy. And so they have to learn how to balance that and understand what's happening to them. So to answer your question, one of the questions is that you asked is who would be overloading that in the Norse tradition would definitely be Odin. So Odin rides a horse. His horse has 8 legs. What do you see here? You see 8 branches in the middle. So you're riding in the middle. We are Odin on earth as well. Our destiny is to become like Odin. Odin is the only god in the Norse pantheon that has access to all of the 9 worlds. And so we could go into all of those. There's in the north, we have the mist world, which is the waters of life, the pure, unmanifested potential in the world. In the, I don't know which direction I'm going here. Let's see, northeast for you would be. So northeast is the realm of the highest heavens. This is Osjard or Asgard, which means the fortress of the celestial deities. And then you have the giant home. This is where Thor, he's half giant and half god. He goes off to fight the giants in the east. In the southeast, we have the realm of the dwarves, which are the subconscious and unconscious powers within us that literally create our universe. We have the south, we have the fire home, which is where the god, he's not really a god, but he's the force of entropy. His name is Surt, and this is what will bring destruction to the end of the world. This is where we would put the god of death, like Yama. You mentioned the word Yama. I don't know if it's the same being or not, but the god of death, we would put him down here. In the southwest, we have the underworld, where the goddess Hela, it's where we get the word hell from, means the underworld. This is definitely all of the unresolved unconscious issues. Over here, we have the home of the Vanir, the gods of time and space, of fertility and magic. And then in the northwest, we have the elves, who are the ascended masters of the human race, like the bodhisattvas. So this would be very similar. That's why I asked you, do you know how many worlds there are? Because if that's the same, then we're corresponding to the exact same. What's interesting is that in the not the Tibetan tradition, sorry, the Mongolian tradition, they also believe that the universe is made up of 9 branches, that there's a world tree that has 9 branches to it. The Taoists, they have a symbol called the Bagua, which means the 8 gates, same kind of thing with a 9th in the center. So this is, I believe, a science that our ancestors understood, and each culture discovered it, doing their shamanic journeys. They came to the same conclusion, talked about it in different language and different symbology, which means spirituality is a science. It's a body of knowledge that you can prove through experimentation. It's not just cute ideas. I wouldn't be doing this if I thought it was just some cute idea. I do it because I want to experience reality at its fullest. So that's my answer to that question that you asked.
Oh, this is great. I'm going to ask you a bunch about these Nordic gods and deities and archetypes and traditions. I'm fascinated with the Old Norse stuff. It's incredible. I've got a beautiful painting of Odin that I had painted for me specifically. That's just awesome. My friend Brady's got him pulling his eye out to save the world and everything. Yeah. It's super awesome. But let me share this with you. Let's see if we can connect something here. So This is a shared screen of the Baba Chakra, like you asked me about. And so this is a traditional Baba Chakra. If you were to look at one that would be on like a Hindu temple or something, you can see it right here. It's you've got the big entity over the entire will that's basically feeding off of it. And in these wills, you've got wills within wills. So if we were to take, I'll show you what this kind of breaks down here for the elements of the Baba Chakra. You've got the hub on the inside, which is essentially the three poisons, which everything is connected to and feeding off of to stay in this will. The second layer is karma. The third layer is the 6 realms of the samsara. So that would be, like I said, like the diva realm, the demigod realm, the human realm, the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, and then the hell realm. So all of these, once again, are based in karma, and they're opposite of each other. So you'd have the diva realm up here and the hell realm down here. So I think that it's almost like yin and yang as well, like wills within wills within wills. You know what's interesting about this is the connection with with karma. Karma is like the underlying web that weaves everything together, and I wonder how much of that karma is based upon your imagination thinking something is bad, when it might actually be something that just is. Like you're not hurting somebody, but because of a religious belief, you think you're doing something wrong because of a thought that you have. Like, oh man, my neighbor's wife's hot. Oops, I shouldn't have thought that. I'm in trouble. I can't pull my eye out. It says pull my eye out. No, I don't want to pull my eye out.
Yeah.
I like them. But
well, my brain's going in a bunch of different directions. The first one is I'm really interested. I'm definitely, when we're done, I'm going to go study that, because what I saw on there was 6 plus 3. There was 3, and then there was 6, which comes to 9. So, the number 6 is actually a number for humanity. And so, that's got my attention. Anyway, I would really have to look at that. But that's my first thought, is that, the 9 worlds and that. I don't want to say something, I don't know anything about, but that's definitely got me going. Karma. You were talking about karma. And you said something which is very powerful for me. And this is, again, something that I teach. People, the law of attraction, obviously very powerful teaching. I spend a lot of time talking about the limitations and what I believe what's incomplete about how it's being taught. And one of them is that we live in a universe that responds to action. And instead of focusing on your thoughts and feelings, like you said, oh my God, I just had lust for my neighbor's wife. Oh, I'm a bad person. That's just a thought. That's just a feeling. And so if we got punished for every thought and feeling, you literally wouldn't be able to get out of bed. In fact, the universe would crush you out of existence. You wouldn't be able to function. But what the universe does respond to directly is your actions, which you can choose to take actions which are contrary to whatever impulse you're having. This is why we do discipline. In case people don't know, why do people meditate for hours a day? Why do people go and do yoga? Why do people run? It's about training yourself to be able to take physical action regardless of what impulse you're having. And so I believe that beliefs are karma. Beliefs are actions, because beliefs are things you choose to believe. You may have a feeling like, I'm afraid of the universe. I'm afraid that there's some beings out there that are going to do this or that to me. That's a feeling. But once you make that a belief, and then you start basing your actions based on fearful feelings, and you create a belief system, which is what religion is. If you don't do what God says, he's going to throw you in hell forever. That's, as soon as you choose to believe that, and then you start acting on that, and then, oh my God, you had lust for your neighbor's wife. It's not your fault that she happens to be a bikini model and she walked out to get her mail in her bikini, and you had a natural human response to that. But the moment that you choose to believe that, you take that guilt on, you throw that negativity on yourself, then you start judging other people, and then you go out and you walk over to her and you say, you should put on some clothes, you whore. Now you've taken action based on that belief, and now you've created some karma. So anyway, yeah, I really liked where you were going with that. That's why it got me so excited.
Oh man, this is very interesting. And to take this back, I want to go back to these Norse traditions. I mean, obviously I'm very fascinated with it. I do a lot of discussion on the Anunnaki, and I think the Anunnaki might actually just be a tribe of very intelligent Nordics that lived through cataclysms, had technologies, and then when they traveled the world and met other people, they were looked at as gods, and then stuff was written about them. And maybe some of them are like demigods and have spirit, like rainbow bodies now and such. But what is your thought on the Anunnaki, the the origins of the Anunnaki talked about in these ancient traditions, and are they connected with the Nordics and the would it be like a Slavic connection?
Well, to be honest, I don't know a heck of a lot about the Anunnaki other than from a mythological perspective, right? If you look at the mythology of the Near East, so that's how I tend to look at it. I tend to look at it the same way I would look at Norse mythology or Vedic mythology. So I try not to answer questions I don't have any knowledge in. So
Sure, perfect. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't want to, say something that make me look stupid or take somebody down a wrong road. So, but that's how I would look at it. I would read it in the same way I read the mythology. Here's how. Let me say this before I go any further. I believe that we live in a hologram. So a hologram is not a this or that. A hologram is this and that. So everything you say could be completely true, and it could be something else. So when I look at mythology, I see mythology not as cute stories. I don't see it as ways of training people morally, although they could be both of those things. They are cute stories, and people could learn from them on a moral perspective. I believe that they are channeled holographic information. True mythology, true mythology is something that is timeless. So if you're reading about something, even if we're talking about something that's supposed to have happened, tens of thousands of years ago, but you're reading it and it has the same impact on you that it would have had on them, it's mythology. I'll give you an example. I didn't even get into researching the spirituality of my ancestors until recently. I'm now 56. So it wasn't until I was in my late 40s that I started looking into it. And before that, I spent all this time doing Qigong, energy work, esoteric, Taoist, mystical practices and meditations. And then I got into Kundalini yoga, Vedic mantra, Vedic meditation, and Vedic mythology and all that. And all of the training in that, which took me completely out of my Western mind. Most people born in the West, even if they're not religious, they still have this religious mindset of how the world works. I really had to completely sort of pull my mind in a bunch of different directions to understand what was going on. But after having done that, like for instance, in Taoist meditation, when you find the ancient manuscripts, you have to know what the symbolism is, because it's telling you specific things to do in the body to open up certain centers. If you don't understand the symbolism, it's just a cute story. So I learned how to do that in both Vedic and in Taoist mysticism. And then I picked up the Norse mythology and I went, holy crap, look at that. They're teaching you Qigong. For instance, Thor. The symbology of Thor is that he wears iron gloves. He wears a belt that doubles his power. And then he has to wear his gloves to pick up his hammer, right? Sounds interesting, sounds cool, unless you know something about Qigong. Qigong, if you see like the Chinese guys doing, the Qigong or doing martial arts, they're wearing a sash around their midsection because it strengthens their navel center, which is where all of their power comes from. Same yogis do the same thing. So there's the belt. So they're teaching people about the navel center and that is the power source. When you wear the belt, it doubles his power. Then he has to wear these metal gloves. Now that doesn't make any sense because metal conducts electricity. The last thing a human wants to do is put on metal gloves to touch something electrical, So why is he doing that? Well, what he's talking about there is that we have energy gates in our hands. And so what he's saying is that you've got to energize the palms of the hands to be able to pick up what? The hammer, which is the lightning. It's teaching people in a symbolic way what Qigong is. That means that our ancestors knew this, but they have been they forgot about it or were guilted out of it or whatever. And there are pictures, like when you find stuff in ancient burials in Scandinavia, I can't remember where I found it because my brain's going so fast, but there are pictures of guys in full lotus. There's a couple of places you can find really ancient depictions of European shamans in full lotus meditating. What does that tell you? It tells you that they were using the same technology that the East Indians and the Asians are using, and that's because the East Indians and the Asians have a direct connection to their prehistory, whereas we've lost it. So yeah, I got off on a tangent. I forgot. What was the question again?
No, that's great. Let's keep talking about it. Qi, I want to talk about Qi. I want to talk about the Qi Gong, and I want to talk about this ancient capability of being able to harness this energy that some people now can do, such as yourself. Were they able to at a point, and can you at a point harness so much energy that you could be like Ken or Ryu off of Street Fighter 2, where you could go, how do you get, and like launch a fireball or some type of like energy ball? And I'm joking, but I'm being serious. There's truth and humor there.
Yeah. The answer to your question is yes. There are different kinds of chi energy that you can tap into. This is back in my late 20s, and I was practicing like 6 hours a day, and that was one of the things that were supposed to be the abilities that these guys had. My teachers had crazy abilities. What I learned was a practice to fight evil spirits. So the energy of that is different. That isn't necessarily something that pushes things away. In other words, if I were to put this energy into a person in a martial capacity, instead of throwing them against the wall, what would happen is that they would crumble. So it looks really weird. You go and you crack somebody and they crumble. It's like if you're watching old movies of war footage and you see the soldiers are running and then they just crumble to the ground, but they just got hit with a bullet. So the energy goes through them, and so instead of throwing them back, it makes them just like crumble right on the spot. But there was a time when I was practicing, and I had heard about this thing that you could do. And I was with my friend, and he was out looking for lamps at some lamp store. I mean, I couldn't make that up. And I was holding my hand away from his back. He didn't know I was doing it. And I was just imagining the energy go through. And I heard this crack. And he went, ah, like that. And he said, knock it off. And I said, I didn't do anything. He said, yeah, right. So I had heard that you could do that. And once that happened that one time, I stopped playing around with it because it was too crazy. But so, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, there's, I've heard stories of guys that could levitate. I didn't learn that practice, but I've heard about that. Yeah, the Taoist wizards were, in my experience, some of the most powerful men. Leave their body at the drop of a hat, go and talk with spirits, go and play with the gods, go to somebody's house. Like, one of the stories of the Grand Master was, people came over to him and said, you're this Grand Master, why aren't you super rich? Why don't you live in a big, giant, fancy house? He says, I don't need that. And they said, what are you talking about? You live so humbly. He says, no, I have all the money I need. They go, what are you talking about? And he says, hang on a second. He closed his eyes. And then this pile of money appears on the table. And then they go, where did you get that? He says, from the bank down the street. And he closed his eyes and the money went back to the bank, I guess. It disappeared. In other words, there wasn't any need for him to go get anything because he knew he could manifest whatever the heck he wanted. And he was comfortable.
Now, who was this?
What's that?
Who was this?
Well, I don't know if I should give his name out. He was the Grand Master of the current Grand Master just recently died. I don't want to give out their names, but I'll say that it's from the Shang-Qing tradition in China. So the Taoists, the first Taoists that came into the world were from the Shang-Qing tradition, which means from the highest heavens. So they were from that tradition. I don't want to name drop, and they haven't given me permission to start talking about them personally, so I don't want to do that.
No, that's okay. No, totally cool. This is just, I had never heard that before, so
yeah.
Of course I'm going to ask that question.
This is the thing. I mean, the real guys, I'm breaking the rules by even talking about this stuff. The real guys, one of the first things I was told when I started training in the spirit fighting arts was that they said, don't show this to anybody and, deny it. And so people would say, hey, you should see this guy, he's amazing. And I go, no, I don't. And I'll do that in public. I'll do that. People talk about it. I say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't practice anything. That's what I was told. Anyway, like I said, I'm kind of breaking the rules just by doing it. But to answer your question, yeah.
Breaking the rules.
Right.
Well, hey man, you look like you weigh about 250. So, and you got magical powers. So, there's not many people that want to mess with you, dude. I'm just saying. They're like, oh, okay, I'll pass.
Yeah, this is because I'm getting older and I like feeling strong. But when I was practicing, I was probably 145 pounds. I was thin as a rail. And the real masters, that's why you see really thin Chinese guys, and those are the guys you want to stay away from. You see a really thin guy in the park doing this, trust me, you want to stay away from that guy. He's all energy.
Just energy, yeah. Well, and then you said that you were taught how to get rid of evil spirits.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about that.
Well, I first started out as a kid. I was a very religious kid, and I don't know why I did, but I started researching exorcism because I was very strong in my, at that time, my Christian faith. And I ended up doing exorcisms, not because I was looking for it. I would just show up places and somebody would be possessed with demons, and I would do the whole "in Jesus' name I command you." What I learned about that, and it was weird, I would go like almost everywhere I went. It was really, for a few years, it was crazy. But what I learned about that is that every person who was demon possessed that I did an exorcism on had been physically, sexually, or psychologically abused, like traumatized. And so I learned very quickly, as I'm, wrestling the person down, and everything that you've seen in The Exorcist, I experienced all of it except for the head turning around. Everything else I experienced. People completely changing. One time this guy's face completely, totally, like physically changed. His eyes were absolutely 100% red and void. It was, really intense stuff. But what I found out is that when somebody gets traumatized to such a degree that it becomes impossible for them to function, they start sending out an unconscious request to be distracted from that. And so the only way to distract yourself from trauma is trauma. So they attract these negative spirits that feed off of fear and anger and other things like that. And so for them to be possessed is actually better for them than living through the hell they've experienced. Because if they haven't gotten some kind of, help from a psychologist or something. So what I had to do is, like, in between, like, the demon would be, and I'd say, "In Jesus' name I command you," and then the person would come back and I'd say, "You have to tell me who abused you. Who was it?" And it would be Uncle so-and-so or whatever it was, or my father or my mother. And then the demon would come back and I'd have to drive the demon away and I'd say, "You have to verbally forgive whoever it was." Because otherwise I couldn't get the demon to leave altogether. And when they would say, "No, I'm not going to," then the demon would come back. So until they could forgive and say, "I forgive so-and-so," or whatever, then I could cast the demon out. And then I'd have this discussion with them and I'd say, "Listen, you got to get your life together." I'm looking back on it now. I was like 18, 19 years old. I'm saying, you got to get your life together. You got to go and start seeing the pastor on a regular basis, or seeing your therapist. Or if you don't, it's going to come back, because this is about your problems with you looking at yourself. And sure enough, every single person that did not follow my directions, the demon came back a couple weeks later. So I gave up. I stopped doing it for that reason, because it was, I'd go home afterwards, and then what happens is you start replaying in your spirit what was really going on. And it's not just some person there saying these horrible things, that there was really nasty, horrible energy doing horrible things. And so I decided I didn't want that anymore. But if you look at my Vedic chart, you'll see that this is kind of, I'm a demon fighter, whether I like it or not. So what ended up happening a few years later, after I walked away from religion, is that I was invited to learn this spirit fighting shamanic art. And it's this particular one is, you're doing what looks like you're doing kung fu forms, but they're really shamanic dances that can be used as extremely powerful martial arts. But when you do it properly, it opens up portals and brings down energy. And so you would go into a haunted place and fight off the negative spirits. In fact, the guys that were looking for immortality would go to haunted places or cursed places and do their forms so that they could fight the demons to get more energy so that they could make their meditations even more powerful. So, can't make this stuff up. I mean, if I did, I'd be, I'd be a science fiction movie maker or something. But yeah, that's where that came
So
from.
harnessing demons' energy to live longer.
It's like, this opens up a long subject. Should we keep talking about this?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So here's the thing about demons. Demons are spirit entities that have chosen to block themselves off from the light of their true reality, which is the same as ours. They have a true reality, which is infinite spirit, whatever. Like the Tibetans, when Tibetan Buddhism came into Tibet, they took the demons of Tibetan shamanism and converted them to Buddhism, and now those, what used to be demons, are now the protectors of Tibetan Buddhism. So these entities are consciously running away from their essence for the same reason that humans run away from their spiritual essence and get involved in drugs and alcohol and crime or whatever. It's the exact same scenario. So they can't feed off of the light of the sun. That's why Dracula, the mythology of Dracula, is that the sun will kill him. It means that he's running away from his spirit, because the sun represents the soul. He's running away from his soul. And so if he were to look at his soul, he would have to die to being a vampire and become a human again. So evil spirits are the same way. So they run around looking for negative emotions: anger, fear, jealousy, lust, anything that puts you in a place of weakness where you don't believe the universe will give you what you want. So when you're fighting a negative entity, one of the first things that will happen if you don't have any like faith or power is you'll get afraid. So the first thing they do is they want to make you afraid. If you are somebody that has power, then they're not going to try that. They're going to come and they're going to start poking at things in your unconscious about, oh, your mom didn't love you. Remember, she broke up with you. Oh, you're such a loser. And what happens is you start to feel like like you just want to go home and all that. Now, when you're doing your sets and you start to feel like that, you know that there's a negative entity in the room trying to stop you, because what you're doing is shocking them, and they don't like the feelings, that the vibrations that are coming through, so they try and talk you out of it. Then if they can't do that, then they will, if they're stupid enough, they'll try and fight you. And so these guys would actually go and fight these spirits. You're doing your sets and you're doing all the moves, and there's all this energy coming out of your body, and you're doing all kinds of other things. They use all the 8 directions. So they're actually if you were to watch some of these guys do it, they move really fast, and you go, wow, that guy's really fast. He's switching directions. From the spiritual perspective, the demon, it looks like you're appearing here and disappearing and appearing over here and appearing over there. From their perspective, they can't, they can't see where you're going, because you're actually changing dimensions. You're changing dimensional through these dimensional doorways. From the 3rd dimension, it just looks like somebody doing a dance. From multiple dimensions, it's somebody appearing and disappearing in different dimensions. So the demons are going to, if they attack you, then what ends up happening is that you end up overcoming your own internal fears. It's going to push you about, your mother hated you, your father didn't approve of you, and you're going to have to face that. That feeling is going to come up, and it's going to want to take your energy out of your body, and you go even harder into the practice. And so you end up overcoming your internal emotional, psychological issues. And when you have none of those, there's nothing for a demon to poke at. And so, yeah, at the other end of it, you're also like slicing through them. They do have an energy body. And, like if you try and punch a ghost, nothing happens. Your fist goes right through them. But if you have a certain energy in your hands, you actually can grab onto that energy and tear it apart and smash through it. So you're physically fighting it as well as facing your own internal issues. And this was one path for them to achieve immortality. Their idea was to become what they call becoming a god, which meant not having to die, so that you didn't have to forget who you were and be reincarnated. They wanted to remember who they were, so they could then phase out of this third dimension and live in a higher dimension and continue to do their meditations until they could achieve enlightenment. So that's two paths. You can either reincarnate until you work through all of your get all of your desires met, or you stay one person in another dimension and then you work through all of your issues that way.
Okay. And I'm thinking of the Lesser Keys of Solomon, and I'm also thinking of King Solomon and the myths about him using and harnessing the powers of demons to create his empire. Sounds to me kind of like what you were just talking about.
Yeah, well, that would sound like a really karmic way to do it. You know, if you're harnessing demons to create, and I'm just, again, I don't know what you're talking about. So this is where my
Old Testament, I think that's the Old Testament.
Okay. Yeah. So if I just hearing that sounds like that you're going to have to work through that karma, because if you're working, you know, and I got nothing against it, like you, there's nothing evil, there's nothing good. It depends on you, you know, the way that, you know, your intention with it. And of course the effects it has on other people. So, I mean, I have no problem with people doing that. You know, one of the other things Taoists used to do is they used to trap demons and put them in gourds and, you know, all that. And then the evil magicians would then release the demons and send them out to, you know, do all kinds of things like that. But
do you think that at a higher level, I was discussing this recently about magic, and it seems like the media is one of the most powerful tools of magic in the world. Far more powerful than a Ouija board most of the time, unless you've got some wicked Ouija board. But my question is, do you think that the powers that be, the money funders, are using the media to harness energy and launch demons and manipulate the scenario for their gain? Almost sorcery.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I tend not to think about that in the same way I don't spend time thinking about politics or other things like that. Because then you start going into this rabbit hole that, I mean, for me, that I can't get out of. So I honestly don't know what they do, but I will say that the media and television, and especially advertisement, is one of the most powerful ways to hypnotize somebody. Now, I was an actor for a long time. I had a theater company in Hollywood, and I did the whole, you know, acting. You know, in fact, the only film that survived that people can find, if they go and they want to look for it, they can go on YouTube and type in "Shadow Glories," and you'll see, you know, Final Fight, and you'll see me, you know, in there. I was a kickboxer fighting, you know, some woman, whatever, blah blah blah. But
you were fighting a cyborg chick.
No, she was a real person. But anyway. Yeah, anyway. But when I would go and I would audition, like, I think I'm a good actor, and the people who would watch me would go, "Wow, that's amazing. How come I've never heard of you?" I'm like, I have no idea. What I came to find out was that, at least when I was auditioning, was that the way to become an actor and a successful actor is not to threaten people. So you'll notice that, like, especially like in advertisements, in commercials, the people there are attractive, but they're not too attractive. They're pleasant to look at. And so what they do is they put you in this state of feeling okay. You like looking at them, but you don't feel threatened by them. If you watch a lot of television, it's the same thing. I mean, you know, sitcoms, some of them are really funny, but the rest of them are just really mindless, and and I started realizing, no, the reason I'm not making it, at least in my, you know, egotistical perspective, is because I actually do this to stimulate people to think, and people don't want to think. So what I learned was that the best way to become a famous actor was to be somebody who would look good in a commercial, because commercials are not about having you think about life. It's about placating you and making you feel good, so you'll spend money on that, spend money on that product. So I mean, this is kind of the way you keep a whole society hypnotized, is just by keeping them in that state of, you know, yeah, sit, eat Cheetos and watch television and do nothing and drink and just go to work 9 to 5 and don't do anything with your life. Don't think about it too much. You know, buy this and feel good. And hey, you know what I mean? That's the way to keep an empire running, you know, is to keep people in that state of, you know, just being hypnotized. So that's my view on that. Absolutely. Yeah. They use money. You know, who's running the world? Corporations that have all the money and are selling you all the products, and they want to keep you in that. And if you violate that and start telling people, go and, grow your own food, all of a sudden some law will be made that you can't do that, right? Again, I'm getting political here, but
no, it's I get it, man. Thanks for bringing that up. And let's call politics for what it really is. Polls of ticks. They're polls full of ticks, pretty much. I mean, they say they're going to do something. They always talk about it, but they never really do anything except for make things more ridiculous.
Yeah.
You said, oh, you want to grow your own food? Well, we're going to legal. That's illegal. Oh, you want to get your own water? That's illegal. Oh, you want to think for yourself? Illegal.
Yeah.
5G them. Give them that 60 gigahertz frequency right now. Put it right into. Okay. Yep. Let's go on to the next subject.
Yeah. And so that's one of the reasons I personally don't focus on it, is because if people are wanting to know how to get under the radar, like if you want to get under the radar from the powers that be, simply focus on living your life. You can do and be anything you want. You can have as much money as you want. You can live wherever you want. You can be as healthy as you want. If you align yourself to your soul, that gets you off of the radar and they don't notice you. They want you in one of two places. They want you to be one of the sheep, or they want to push your buttons so you'll be one of the rebels. If you're one of the rebels, they can keep their eye on you. If you're one of the sheep, they can control you. If you just live in your life, you disappear and they don't even know you exist, and you get to enjoy it. And, I mean, all the things that have been going on from the beginning. It's been about people trying to control other people and take your resources, and it's always been the same. So,
dude, you're making way too much sense. Stop it. Stop. It's funny because my life path is to be a rebel. I mean, so like you said, if you follow your life path, things will start to present themselves and they can be amazing. And so there are few people out there that I think are designed to be more on the rebel yell side, but I love how you put that. Quit getting yourself stuck into that mindset. If you don't want to play their games, don't play them.
Yeah.
Love it. Don't play them. You don't have to. You're your own person. And that reminds me of a saying that somebody made that was very good in my mind about how they were told when they were doing this shamanic exercise in a pyramid in Giza, actually, and they were doing stuff they weren't supposed to be doing there, but they remember somebody like, don't fight the wars of the gods, or don't fight the battles of the gods. And that's kind of like what you're saying. I mean, the gods can pull you into it. These deities and archetypes and demons and energies and life forces and parasitic energies, they can pull you into their battle. But if you choose to do your own thing independent from that, man, that was good. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's for me, life is just practical. I just want to be happy, and I'm happy when I'm just focusing on my deal and what's good for me. And this is true for everybody. What's good for me is good for the rest of the world. What's bad for me is bad for the rest of the world. I do the things that are good for me. And this is what I teach. I just teach people how to just enjoy their life in the best way. I do Qigong because it actually has a practical effect on my health. I mean, people don't know how old I am. If you didn't see my gray hairs and my eyebrows or my beard, you'd say, oh, he's not 20, but people say you're 40, and gosh, you're in good shape. It's because
I thought you were in your 40s.
Yeah, I'm 56. I just don't let that crap get into me. And I think age is about, after living on the planet for 40, 50, 60 years of being stressed out about all the stuff you don't have to worry about, it gets in your body and it does all kinds of things to you, If you just want it, if you want to just enjoy life, you can stay in that space of being young and happy all the time. And the body will continue. Somebody told me the body's designed to live for 10,000 years or something like that. So I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, but yeah. Anyway,
well, with technologies right now, there could be a very good chance that there was a report recently that some scientists found out how to stop aging in rats and mice. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. There was that one.
Yeah, I've signed me up. Somebody can prove that to me. I'll buy that product.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you imagine having 10,000 years of, like you said, not forgetting, being able to focus for 10,000 years on something. You could be pretty powerful. And maybe there are people right now behind the scenes or even in the scenes that you would never know are doing exactly that.
when people, I mean, the fact that I talk about these things lets you know that I'm very low on the totem pole. I can get away with talking about it. The people that really do that, you'll never know. They will never let you know. And then, you know, in my experience, there are people that have phased out of three-dimensional reality that are running around doing things. They're still here. We just can't see them with our eyes. So, yeah.
Dude, that's wild.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But again, the thing is, when they get to that level, they don't give a crap about what people think they give a crap about. You know, they're not going to care so much about running the world or being rich. They're going to care about the things we're talking about. How can I focus on keeping my consciousness alive and getting higher? And, you know, when you've tasted real energy, you know, like the experiences that I've had with real life force energy, all the rest of it just becomes so silly. It's like, why waste my time with that? You know, so I totally get where, you know, the great grandmaster was when he's just sitting in his tiny little home and he's fine. But if he wants it, he can get $1 million and bring it onto his table if he wants, but he doesn't need it. He's got his tea there and he's comfortable and he's got his little garden. You know, that's the people that have that kind of power. That's where you're going to see them. You know, like Yoda, perfect example. Yoda, he doesn't care about that. Anyway, that's been my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel that these, I want to go back to the shamanic stuff here for a moment, if we can. So you brought up some ideas like the beats and the native sounds, etc. Are there other personally experiences that you have had where you've gone into realms that were more of a kind of like a scary movie type scenario where you're going through like goblins and gremlins and kind of stuff? Because I've read about different shamanic experiences where people have gone through just that.
Let me say that I believe that. I personally don't experience that. I mean, every now and then I'll have a bad dream, like a nightmare, but I know what that is. That's my own unconscious fears coming up, and it'll come up as a nightmare. In terms of when I leave my body and those kinds of things, the only places I've gone have been to those really bright, intensely orgasmic places of bliss. But having said that, I absolutely believe that people go through those other ones. The reason for that is because here's the bottom line, my belief. Everything is my own projection. And that's true for you. I am a projection from within you. So if somebody has a shamanic journey and they go to some kind of a place of torment, all they're doing is they're going into their own unresolved places of torment. It doesn't mean that it's not real. It doesn't mean you can't get trapped there. It doesn't mean that you can't spend eons there being punished. It just means that it's all coming from you. So one of the things that the Buddhists teach, which I believe, because I've experienced a similar experience, is that the moment that you die, the first thing that happens is the light appears. Now, the light is you. If you see that and you go, oh, that's me, boom, you're done. You merge with everything. You become a bodhisattva. That's it. Every single person in every life gets that opportunity. If, however, you see in that and you become afraid, then all these other doors pop open and you get pulled into those. It could be you get pulled into a place of torment. You get pulled into another womb and you get reborn. You get pulled into a place of pleasure where, the lokas of the gods. They're all within you. When I was meditating, well, let me tell you another story. When I was 7 years old, I had scarlet fever. And apparently I was on the verge of death or something. And I thought I was lying in bed and, oh, sorry, I'm mixing up two different shamanic experiences. Let me back up. I had a dream when I was 7 years old. That was another one where I saw a guardian angel and she told me what was going to happen in my life and all that. Forget about that for now. I was 7 years old and I was walking around and I was worried somehow that God didn't love me. I don't know how I got that feeling, but I thought, God doesn't love me. And I was really sad about it because I was a really religious little kid. And I fell asleep, and that night I got pulled out of my body. And as I got pulled out of my body, I went through the atmosphere of the earth. And you wouldn't believe the psychic garbage that's flying around. I mean, I could hear everybody's thoughts and feelings, and everybody was just so focused on themselves and my life, and I don't have enough money, and I'm not pretty enough. And then I came out of that, and then I floated through some darkness, and then there was this light in the distance, really bright light, and I got pulled into the light. The closer and closer I got to the light, I realized that that light was so bright that if I was looking at it with my real eyes at 7 years old, I said, if I saw it with my real eyes, my eyes would burn out of my head. That's what my little 7-year-old mind saw. And I got pulled into that light, and it became really intense, and it became frightening because it was so intense. And here's the weird part about it. It was pure joy. It was pure bliss. It was like, imagine an orgasm that's so good, it's too good. It's like, you don't want to go there because you're going to just blow apart with bliss. And that's what happened. I went in there, and then I was surrounded by this bliss. And I started saying, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home. And I was so happy to be home. And so then I got pulled back out, and I started saying, no, no, no. I didn't want to go back into my body. I didn't want to go back into this physical body and all the pain and the tragedy and all that. And then I went back through the world with all the voices and the craziness, and back in my body, and I woke up. Now, at that time, in my 7-year-old brain, I thought I had seen Jesus. And I spent decades telling people I've seen Jesus. You know, I went to heaven and I saw Jesus. And then when I left Christianity and I walked away from organized religion, I said to myself, hang on, that light never told me who it was, never said, my name is so-and-so, I am this, didn't say anything. It just filled me with this intense bliss and made me realize that my essence is to be there. That's where I'm supposed to be. That's home. I'm on vacation here in this body. That's home. And then the more meditating I did, I realized that all I had done was just go deep into my own soul, that the essence of me is that infinity. If you want to call it God, that is the essence of me. When I was meditating another time, I was outside of my body, and I could see like my body looked huge, and it was floating in space, and the stars were around. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I felt this presence around me say, everything is within you. When you look up at the stars, you're not looking outside of you, you're looking inside. So to answer your question, yeah, when people die or when they take shamanic journeys, especially if it's forced, you know, like if they take a chemical or a hallucinogen without having done the proper, you know, shamanic preparation, you'll definitely get pulled into your own garbage, and then you'll see demons and horrific things. And so I've been lucky in that. I guess I must have done something right in a past life, because I just, like I said, I don't take anything that seriously. And so I don't get pulled into any of those places.
So that's good. And see, I'm thinking about this Western book that I read. It's a Western shamanism book where this guy was talking about how you could practice these certain exercises. And one in particular was to be, to go into this other realm and then imagine yourself being consumed by this giant demon and then essentially shat out. And that's like your purification process, to be eaten by a demon and then, dumped out. So hello, very interesting. But at the same time, it's like, okay, that sounds like it's a pretty ancient mindset. You know, I mean, that was probably something that people went through back in the day that have some mind altering substances and that see weird things and whatever. But I think that it all has substance, and I appreciate the way your mindset is, where you're not letting anything interfere with your goal, and you're just focusing on good intent and what your path is. So, well, that's great. And with that being said, I was hoping that maybe we could talk more about the Norse traditions and such. The Odin. How long was he? So how did he sacrifice himself, and what is the symbolism to that? Was it 9 days on a tree, or
9 days? Yeah. Thank you so much for asking that question.
Thank you for answering.
Yeah, when I was going, what ended up happening after I was, had done all the Vedic stuff and the Taoist stuff, and I was getting to a level where I knew I needed something else. There was something missing. Long story short is that, and I have it in my book. If people want to read one of my book, the Path of the Thunder Wizard, I talk about how I got to where I was. But one of the things I do when I'm waking up in the morning, after I've been dreaming and I wake up, I let myself fall back into a half state of sleep. And if there's been a dream that I have, I'll go over it and analyze my dream. Or if there's a question that I have, I will ask it. And sometimes I get an answer and sometimes I don't. So one morning I was waking up and I'd been thinking exactly that. What is this sacrifice Odin did? And I was thinking about, Jesus' sacrifice on the cross and Odin, and what's the connection there? So I simply asked, I said, Odin, and I'm telling you, some of your viewers are going to have a hard time with what I'm about to say, because it hit me hard. I had a very hard time hearing it, but I chose to go through it. I said, Odin, what is the difference between your sacrifice on the tree of life and Jesus' sacrifice on the cross? And to my surprise, I heard this booming voice that said, Jesus was a coward. And it shocked me and scared me to my core, because I had been taught as a Christian, any voice that says anything negative, denies Jesus, is a demon. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And so I said, but you know what? I'm not going to let it scare me. I refuse to do that. And so I opened up, and as though, Odin was there watching, waiting for me, he started in. And he started telling me, he said, I sacrificed myself to myself. And that's what it says in the mythology. Odin sacrificed himself to himself. Himself, little self, to himself, big self. And so that means he sacrificed his identity, we would say our ego, to the higher awareness. And from the result of that, the runes appeared to him. The runes means, of course, those, these things, the runic letters, that. But runes means sacred secrets. The secrets of the universe revealed themselves to him. And screaming, he took them up. So he went on to say to me that he sacrificed himself to himself for his own enlightenment. And he said, for any being to give their enlightenment to somebody else who hasn't earned it is the worst thing you could possibly do for them. And he says, look at human beings. They are sheep. They can do nothing for themselves. He said, Jesus did the worst thing anybody could do. He said, I would never do that. I have shown through my sacrifice to myself, I've shown you what you can become. And he became king of the gods. Now, the interesting thing, and we could discuss about who Odin is that in the Indo-European tradition, which is the Germanic, the Nordic, the Vedic, the Hindu, the Greek, the Zoroastrian, those are all, originally a group of people called Indo-Europeans, right? In all of those cultures, which are basically goes back to an original culture tens of thousands of years ago, there is no mention of Odin. There's a mention of the Sky Father. His name is Zeus. His name means the sky. There's Jupiter, Deus Piter, which means the Sky Father. So these were the kings of heaven. And then in the Germanic tradition, somewhere around 2,000 years ago, this god Odin appears, and he becomes the All-Father. And then so you have to ask, how did this god that doesn't exist anywhere in the Indo-European pantheon, how did he show up as the king of the gods in the Norse tradition? So who was he? What was he? Whatever he was, he died to himself, achieved the knowledge of the universe, and that made him the king of the gods. So he's saying that you can be that also. And he says, I hate the whole Jesus thing because that turns people into slaves. And, and I got this feeling that once European culture decided they wanted to become Christian, he just backed off and said, all right, you guys do whatever you want to do. And he went off and he kept doing his own research and kept on doing his own stuff. But what's been interesting is that I've heard of people like there's a guy in Indonesia. He's an Indonesian guy. He's not like, European of ethnicity. And he talks about this guy that appeared to him who had one eye and started teaching him all of the runes basically. And he now has this whole magical tradition with runes, and he's not Norse at all. And he's talking about this god that we know now is Odin appeared to this guy. Who is this guy? What's going on with him? So anyway, that's my thought about that. It's not a sacrifice of sins, because Odin would say, you didn't do anything wrong. You are destined to be the kings and queens of the universe. Being born is not a sin. And there's a phrase, that the Norse would say, which was, those who die in battle go to Valhalla. Now, at first, that sounds like those who get stuck with a sword in the neck go to Valhalla. But that's not what it means. It means those people who are willing to die for their own happiness, for their own enlightenment. And literally, you have to be willing to die to achieve it. You'll do whatever is most frightening to you. Like right now, I'm living in Australia. I just left the United States. I packed a suitcase and I'm living in Australia. I have no idea what's going to happen next, where I'm going, but I'm surfing my brains out and I'm having all this fun. And that was because I was willing to die to the idea of whoever I thought I was. And I'm living that. I think, at the moment I'm living in my Valhalla. But that's for me. That's what that means. If you want to achieve your full awakening in this world, because the pre-Christian tribal people of Europe, they believed that you had to go out and conquer your world, that this was a good thing, that you would say to people, yes, I went out and I did this and I conquered that and I got this, and your pride was something that was good. If you didn't have pride, there was something wrong with you. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you out there being the best that you can be? Be the alpha male, be the king of the universe. Nowadays, it's bad. It's unspiritual. No, don't be proud of yourself. Don't go accomplish everything. Be a sheep and just... So that's my answer to you about Odin's sacrifice. It's very different. Again, a lot of people are going to have a very hard time with it. I totally understand. I did. That wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking, Jesus, he was a very spiritual guy, and he gave his life for people, and what a kind thing. To hear that totally shocked me. But now I see that the powers that be way back then used whatever the Messiah symbolism was and usurped it to control people. Because what is the thing that Jesus taught? He taught, pay your taxes. Don't disobey the kings. That is not something spiritual rebels do. So either that's some false information that people said Jesus said this, if people believe he existed, or somebody made up that whole thing in order to come up with a religion to control people.
Well, if you look at the scriptures and you compare them to others, such as the Sumerian tablets and different mythologies around the world, there's an underlying theme that seems to connect. And also, it seems like there's extras, and then you bring up some great points. If you read the Gnostic texts about Jesus, Jesus didn't even die on the cross. There was somebody else that took his place. And there's even a Gnostic text where Jesus is mocking others that are in the Old Testament as well, and it was very interesting. So there's a lot of different opinions, but it seems to me like the Norse traditions, from what you're telling me, is a much more live in the now, appreciate who you are, and don't be a system to the Borg and just bowing and coward, as a coward, essentially. Yeah. But what I'm also thinking too is the archetype of Jesus might be also what you picked up on, because Jesus might have been an awesome person, right? Jesus could have been amazing, like you said, but they could have taken what Jesus was and who he was, manipulated everything, such as the church. The Vatican has done an amazing job taking control. Yeah. The majority of religious texts that didn't fit their agenda were either destroyed or ridiculed.
Yep.
So you've got that institution has more money than just about any other corporation or religion in the world. So how much power does it actually have? And then they've taken all this knowledge and hidden it, and then they've came up with their own God, and they've attempted to bring everything in this monotheistic belief system, and then they say, do as we say, not as we do. Right. So dude, you bringing up some great points. And so what's going through my mind at the moment when you said that was, maybe Odin's like, look, this archetype of thinking you can do whatever you want, and all you have to do is say, please forgive me of my sins, Jesus. That could be what Odin's, just saying, no, That's not right. You got to, you can't just put everything on this entity. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole idea of asking for forgiveness starts from the assumption that you're flawed, that you're limited, that you're, I mean, you start from this negative to begin with. So yeah, what else are you going to do? And our ancestors, before the Abrahamic religions, at least the institutionalized ones, they didn't think like that. They saw, in fact, the word for human in the Germanic is man. Now, nowadays, we use man to mean male human, but originally it meant human beings. Now, the word man is an Indo-European word which means two things. It means mind and it means the moon. So whenever you look up at the moon, you were saying the mind. Whenever you talk about your mind, you're talking about your moon. What does the moon do? It reflects the sun. What is the sun? The sun is the soul. In fact, an ancient Germanic word for soul is Sawul, S-A-W-U-L. That's why it's spelled S-O-U-L. Soul, the sun. So humans are man, meaning that they are divine mind. They reflect the divine spirit. To call somebody that, to say this being is divine mind, that is a very powerful thing. That means that human beings are not these tiny little things to be smashed around. They are like the kings of the universe. My understanding, based on working with my higher ups, is that the gods themselves wish that they could incarnate to be human, because the power that there is to be human, to be able to, your body, your organs, your mind, you got these third eye and all of these things in your brain, the pineal, the pituitary, you got these 7 chakras, you got these 3 energy centers. If you're able to light these things up, you become this walking God on earth where you create your own reality, and that is a very powerful thing. And so what is the best way to do that? To keep somebody away from that, the best way to do that, you create a religion that starts from the assumption that you're a worthless piece of crap, that you're horrible, that you're born sinful, and that you have to beg and plead to be forgiven. And then maybe if you make it through this life, you'll be taken to some place of rest where you can strum a harp on a cotton candy cloud somewhere. That sounds so horrifically boring to me. I can't even imagine. Our ancestors didn't see us like that. You only see that when you start seeing empires. As soon as empires start to form, they start to create religions that keep you smashed down in part of the system. If you go back to tribal, the more primitive, the more tribal, where people are just connected to the earth, they have all these abilities. They can leave their body. They do all kinds of stuff because they know that they're that they're mind on earth. Sorry, I got on a rant there.
No, dude, keep going. This is great. I was thinking about I showed you that Bhava Chakra, right? Well, guess what? The moon in the Bhava Chakra means liberation oftentimes. Buddha's pointing at the moon, and I've wondered if it's like a soul recycling center almost. But then you brought up the reflection of the soul, the sun and the moon and the mind. That's beautiful, man. That's fantastic. Loki. Tell us about Loki. He's one of my favorites.
Loki is one of my favorites too. Treat that person with respect, please. Loki. So a lot of people mistake Loki for the devil, even modern heathens, neo-heathens who are trying to, recreate.
What is a heathen? One who,
heathen,
one who dances.
Actually, heathen is a bad word.
It is?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't know that. People who call themselves heathens may not know that. But pagan and heathen are bad words. They were used by Christians to make fun of people who still followed polytheism. So a pagan in Latin means somebody who lives in the country. It means a hick. It means a hillbilly. Heathen is the same thing. In England, you have the heath, and the people who lived out on the heath were the poor, stupid, uneducated farmers. And so it meant while the elite in the cities were adopting Christianity and learning, this and that, there were these stupid heathens out there that were still worshiping Odin and Thor. So I think that they had those heathens, those pagans, those dirty, redneck, idiot hillbillies. So I don't use those words for that reason. But did I answer your question?
You did, absolutely. So I had heard that the
Loki.
pagan word meant one with nature, but now heathen, that explains that. Thank you. Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
a slang word for
Yeah.
basically
So yeah, and pagan
yeah.
was the when Christianity was taken over Rome, the Christians in Rome called people who still worship the gods, they called them idiot farmers, those pagans. It wasn't a compliment. It was a bad thing.
Got it.
So I mean, I don't use that for that reason, but
Oh, that's
yeah.
great. I'm glad you explained it that way. Thank you.
So the modern, what I call neo-heathens, are people who are honestly wanting to go and recreate the polytheist religion of their ancestors. And there's all different kinds of heathens who believe all kinds of different things. But a lot of them, in my experience, are still operating from their Christian mindset, and they're just trying to take, replace Jesus with Odin. And so they still have the same kind of, so they look at the myths the same way. So anyways, I kind of have this love-hate relationship with them because for honest reasons. So, but you were asking me about Loki. So let's talk about. So Loki is oftentimes seen as the devil even by neo-heathens because he is the trickster. So my experience with Loki is that he actually is one of the best friends that human beings can have, because what he will do is that he will do whatever it takes to get you to see the truth, even if that means seducing you or tricking you into falling into the worst habits of yourself. So one of the great ways to see this is in one of the Norse myths, where Balder, who is a representation of the soul, he ends up going to hell. Now Balder was the god who was like the sun. Everybody loved being around him. The gods loved being around him. He was the most beloved of all the gods. And his mother, Frigga, the queen of heaven, was overheard saying something to one of her handmaidens, saying, yeah, nothing can touch my son, because I went around to every being in the universe and made them promise that nothing would harm Balder. So what the gods would do is they would sit around and they'd drink meat and they'd get drunk and they'd say, hey, Balder, get up there for a second. And they'd throw spears at him and fireballs at him and axes. And, the axes would bounce off of him or explode, and he would stand there like Superman. And this was happening once, and Loki had remembered what Frigga had said, and it infuriated him. Now, it doesn't say in the myth why it infuriated him, but I know why it infuriated him. It's because they weren't appreciating the power of the soul. And so what Loki did is he pulled Balder's brother, whose name means ignorance. And he said, and ignorance is blind. And he says, hey, how come you're not joining in the fun? How come you're not throwing a fireball or an axe or an arrow at Balder? And he says, oh, I can't see. He goes, oh, don't worry, I'll help you. And so he takes his arrow and he aims the arrow. And then he takes a sprig of mistletoe and he puts it on the end of the arrow. And then he aims it towards Balder and says, okay, shoot. And so ignorance sends the arrow. Because there's mistletoe on the end of the arrow, it pierces him and it kills him, and he goes to the underworld. Now, the reason why mistletoe did that was because Frigga had decided out of her goodness that mistletoe was too young and could not responsibly follow through with a vow. So she left mistletoe out of it. Loki heard this and used it when the time was right. So what ended up happening is that the mother of the universe went down to hell and went to the goddess Hela and said, please, please give us back our favorite son. And she said, I would love to, anything for you, but I can't. I've taken a vow. Once people get here, they've got to, get their own way out. I can't do that. She says, but if you can get every single being in the universe to weep for Balder, I will release him. So Frigga goes to every being in the universe, every rock, every tree, every cell, everything, and everything starts weeping for Balder, except for one giantess, and it says in the myth, who is Loki. And the name of the giantess is Gratitude. And what that means is that when they went to Gratitude and said, Gratitude, will you weep for Balder? Gratitude said, no, I'm not going to weep for Balder. I appreciated him while he was here. To weep for him would demean his his memory. I appreciated him. You didn't. That's your fault. I'm adding in some more stuff. But all he said was, no, I'm not going to weep for him. And then it says very clearly that that was Loki. Loki was saying you have to appreciate the soul while you have it. What I hear from that is that the gods weep when humans become incarnated, because the brightness and the beauty of every soul before it incarnates is amazing to the universe, amazing to all of the gods. And they weep and they clap and they stand up because they know how hard it is to come down here and choose to be human and to have to muck through all of that to remember your power and to learn how to be a god on earth. Only the most powerful of beings. So anybody listening to me who thinks that, that the universe is out to get you, that there are beings out there trying to keep you from your greatest happiness, you can choose to live that way, because the matrix will reflect that back on you because it says, look, God says it wants to be miserable. All right, go ahead. Here's all this misery. But if you are able to remember who you are, to remember the power that you have, then all of a sudden all the chakras and all the points and everything, that's what all this stuff is about. Kundalini yoga, Taoist meditation, spirit fighting, all that is about to get us to the place where we can be gods on earth and live in this three-dimensional video game and just have a blast. And every being in the universe wishes they could be us.
That's fascinating. So let me ask you the next question then about this reptilian exposure that you talk about actually on your YouTube channel. It says right here, shape-shifting, shifting timelines, exposing the reptilian conspiracy, the origins of the ancient gods, and much more. So what is the reptilian conspiracy to you?
That's a really good question. I started doing a series, which I haven't finished yet, which is the Naga conspiracy. And hopefully I'll have time to be able to finish that sometime, but it's like Loki. So we could, if we wanted to, we could say Loki was a reptilian. The way to understand the reptilians is, number one, this is your base instinct. We know that. We have a reptilian brain. Everybody's heard that. It's fight or flight, fear. I've seen a reptilian, so I know that they're out there. The question is, what are they? If we go back to my previous assumption, which is that everything is my own projection, the reptilians are coming from me. So people who are being manipulated by the reptilians are people who are trapped in their fear, trapped in the lack of awareness that you yourself are the God of the universe and the whole universe must obey you. When you don't realize that, then there's only one other place to go, which is fear. So what I believe the reptilians are is they're like Loki. They're going to reflect back to you your fear, unless you are on the path to knowledge, in which case, as you've probably seen in many traditions, who is it that brings the secret knowledge? It's the snake. The snake is the one that brings the secret knowledge. The snake has poison. When you get bitten by a snake, that poison can kill you. That poison is the knowledge that tears away the illusion of this world. So what is the snake? It wants to do one of two things. It either wants to keep you trapped in your delusion and your fear and all of that, so that you play the game and learn the hard way. But if you have the ability, if you have the fearlessness to look the snake in the eyes, he will tell you the truth about yourself and about the universe. So that's how I view reptilians. And again, the way the universe is set up, it's a hologram. It's not a two-dimensional screen. It's a this and that. And I talk about the matrix, and one of the rules of the matrix is if you operate from assumptions or beliefs that have fear in them, the matrix is designed to give you a negative experience. So it's going to reinforce whatever your negative experience is. If you operate from a fearless point of view, like my ancestors did, those who are dying in battle go to Valhalla, willing to die for your own happiness, your awareness, then the matrix is designed to reward all of your fearless actions with positive things. So the reptilians are a representation of that program, if you will, within the matrix that is designed to respond to either your fear or your fearlessness. If you're afraid, all the stories you've heard are true. And I have no problem with the idea that there might be reptilians running around, and we could talk about what that means. Are they just humans operating from their reptilian brainstem? Are they reptilians? I don't care. The end result is the same, right? They operate in magical, weird ways that destroy your life. If we operate from fearlessness, then we get to be the yogis who learn from the Nagas. We get to be the wizards who are able to learn from the wisdom of the serpent. You know, what does the Old Testament say? Right? It talks about that the serpent came to them and said, what is it that Jehovah, and we could talk about who Jehovah is. Jehovah is, in my belief, is the human, not the man, but the physical human ego. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, and blah, blah, blah. It's just ego. So what is the snake saying? So all I'm telling you is I'm going to give you, you can be like God. Don't you want that? Here, eat this. And then what happens? The ego rises up and says, what have you done? I will throw you into the fire. You know, it all depends on how you look at it. So that's my thought about reptilians. They can be your best friend, or they can be the worst tormentors in the universe. And it all depends on you. If you choose to believe that you are the most powerful being in the universe, they will serve you. If you choose to accept the deception that you are a weak, tiny little being, then they will lord it over you, and they will make your life miserable and take you into all kinds of hells until you go, I am so tired of this. I want to be God again. And then you remember. And then everybody stands up. The reptilians, the demons, the gods, everybody stands up and claps and says, hey, he did it. You remember who you are now. That's how I see it. That's how I see the reptilians.
Man, that's so fascinating, because just a couple of days ago, talking about Matrix Saints, I had a guest on the show. His name's David Mathis, real nice guy. He went to West Point and has studied English and history. And we talked about these religions being connected to cosmology, most religions around the world, and having stories that talk about how to get us back to our true selves. And that's exactly what you and I are talking about right now. So Matrix, hello.
Yeah.
This is great. This is fantastic. So with all of this knowledge, and it seems as if more people are starting to kind of unplug, do you think it's kind of it's going to have a global shift in consciousness, or do you think it's just going to continue to be those that are waking up on their own individual paths?
Well, that's a good question. I'm open to, any idea. First and foremost, I'll say that anybody at any time can choose to become awakened. Main thing is just start from the premise of fearlessness. If you can start from that, reject any fear-based belief, and go with fearlessness, anybody can wake up. Having said that, I do believe that according to the Yuga system, there's a couple of Yuga systems. We've just come out of Kali Yuga, which is the age of darkness, and we're now in what's called Dvapara Yuga, which means, I forget exactly what it means, but in the age of darkness, 75% of the human race is in darkness, doesn't know who it is. 25% is awakened. In Dvapara Yuga, it's half and half. We see that in the political climate, split right down the middle. Never in my life, in my 56 years, have I ever seen such a polarization in politics and in thought. We're in Dvapara Yuga. Half people are waking up, and people can decide which side they want to say is half and half. I don't really care. And then we've got the astrological understanding that we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And the sign of Aquarius is where the masses come to awareness and the elites are overthrown. So there's no more kings and queens. Everybody works together. It's an age of cooperation and power for the masses. So I would say that I believe in the Yuga system, and I believe in the astrological system, and I believe that people will start to wake up. But like anything, like when seasons change, like when I lived in Idaho, you have real seasons. When I lived in California, I thought that the seasons just slowly changed, and one day, it slowly get colder and colder. But if you live in someplace where you have seasons, it'll be hot one day, and then the next day it'll snow, and then it'll be hot, and then it's like the seasons, winter and fall are sort of like moving out and say, winter comes in and brings her suitcase, and fall moves out and says, I got to move over there. And then, finally it mellows out, and then it's cold again. So I think it's like that for us when we're moving from the age of Pisces, which was the age of elites, to the age of Aquarius, and we're going to have the resistance. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing the last gasp of the resistance of the elites who want to hold on. And of course, the elites are nothing more than our own projection. So we're starting to let go of our resistance to the idea of getting to that level of equality. And it's reflecting in all of this stuff that's happening all over the world. So I think eventually we'll all get there. But as I said, you know, if people want to, they can choose to do it right now.
Right on. Well, this has been awesome, and I'm really hoping we'll have another opportunity in the near future. I do want to let everybody know that has an opportunity to watch this podcast. Definitely subscribe to Thunder Wizard, Real Esoteric Spirituality. I'm going to hit the subscribe button right now. Boom. Subscribed.
Thank you.
Almost 19,000 subscribers. Right on, man. That's fantastic. I'll bet you after this podcast gets presented, you'll break the 20,000 mark.
That would be wonderful. I would appreciate that. Yeah. And anytime, man. And if you want to come on my channel, I'll be happy to interview you, you know,
yeah,
whenever you want.
That'd be great. Absolutely. And in closing, is there anything that you would like to share with us? And how can people watch more of your shows besides YouTube?
Yeah. So YouTube is my main interface with the world.
Gets presented, you'll break the 20,000.
All right. Sorry about that. You can hear it in the background. I'm monitoring as I go. I can't tell with my current scenario when the interview actually stopped, but I didn't want to, in case he was revealing personal information about himself, I didn't want that to be broadcast over the airwaves, so hopefully I cut it off in time before that. Hopefully I didn't cut it off when something important was being said. Here I am out of costume. There. Whoops. I'm getting ready to go on, take a flight. I gotta take a flight out of the country for a day, keep my visa kosher. So that's what I'm doing. I'm packing up and trying to do two things at once. Share this video while I'm packing up to leave. I wish I had time for a bunch of questions. If there's something simple on here, I will address it. Let's see. Yeah, DC Pagan asks a really good question, but as I often say, if I don't feel really confident in the answer, I'm not going to pretend. So he or she, I don't know if DC Pagan's a he or she, says, at the end of Ragnarok, it was said that Balder and his blind brother Hoder emerged from hell sharing secret wisdom. What was that secret wisdom? That's something I'm going to meditate on because that's a really good question. And like I said, I've got some feelings about it, but until I get a hit on that, I don't want to, just throw out a pointless opinion just for the sake of doing it. Somebody asks, am I wearing Rudraksha beads? Yes, in the video there, I'm wearing my Rudraksha beads around my neck. Thomas Anderson, so this hasn't been a normal Q&A, normal question and answer as I'm talking live, with you guys. In the future, if you come back to these question and answers, do me a favor and just write the word question. You can see up there, DC Pagan did that. Otherwise, I can't see your question. There was a guy on here, Bruce Omala Amen Simpson Rhodes, and I ended up just blocking him because all he was doing was just trolling, And so, unfortunately, that's what happens. Even when people aren't trying to, they have an opinion about this and an opinion about that, and I love your stuff, or I hate your stuff, or my dog, is going to the bathroom, and I have to scroll past all that to get to the questions. So that's why I just prefer to have questions on there. And so, Thomas Anderson, if you write the word question in future Q&As, I'll be able to see it, because I miss a lot of questions because people don't let me know it's a question. Do you know about counterfeits? Some people are synthetic beings created by Draco Alliance. No, they're not. Think about that. How would you feel if somebody accused you of being a synthetic person, of being a bot? No, the universe doesn't work like that. This is a childish, fear-based thing, and that sets up all kinds of abuse, because once you get enough people who decide that person over there is synthetic, and then you can do all kinds of things to them. So no, get rid of that garbage. Any of that fear-based garbage is going to cause you problems. If you want to be king of the universe, if you want to be able to be a god on earth, if you want to be able to create all of your life and happiness, you have to understand that the universe works in certain ways. And as I said earlier, if you watched earlier, I said that whenever somebody is born as a human, the gods weep and clap. Because to be human means that whoever comes down here gets the right to become human. You have to understand that. Anybody who becomes human has earned that right in the spiritual realm and is seen as a very high, very powerful, very brave spirit. Now, we come down here specifically to learn and to grow, so we forget all that, and when people forget all that, they end up doing stupid things. They end up doing harmful things, but this is a video game. So you have to have compassion for everybody, and if you don't have compassion, guess what? You turn in. The people who are those counterfeits are people who do not have compassion for anybody else. So as long as you hold on to that idea that there are people out there that aren't human, you're becoming one of them. You want to avoid that? You have compassion for everybody, no matter how horrible they are. Because that is a soul, that's a brand new soul who's just come down here for the first time and has forgotten who they are, and they realize they've gotten way out of their depth and bitten off more than they can chew, and they're afraid. And that's all it is. It doesn't mean that people who do evil things, that their things they do aren't evil. It is. But, once you buy into that disease, you become part of them. You become one of them. Let's see. No other questions. Well, Jungle Raider says question. He's talking about something he said earlier. Would be more interested in the... yeah, so if you ask a question, you have to actually ask a question. Like it has to have a subject and an object and a verb. Like a full sentence that I can understand. I know it's hard. You guys are typing in on your phones and, you're kind of lazy and you don't, But if you want to ask me a question... Would you do that in front of me? Would you walk up in front of me and say, would be more interested in the 9 roots of Odin? Question? You wouldn't say that. You would ask me a sentence. So give yourself the respect to get the answer that you want, and give me the respect to actually communicate to me in a full sentence, and I'll be happy to answer your question. All right. I don't see any other... Let me see if I go up to the top, see if there's any questions that I missed. Nope. Why, that Bruce guy, he had a lot of things to say. Miguel had asked a question, when's the next live one? I don't schedule them, so you're just going to have to, hit subscribe and hit the bell button. And one of these days I'll get organized. One of the things that you can do to help me be more organized is you can go up here to thunderwizard.com and you can subscribe. Subscribe at whatever level you want. The more subscriptions I have, my goal is to get my channel huge. This is why I do this interview. One of the things you can do, by the way, is if you know of a channel on YouTube that you think might want to interview me, let me know and I'll contact them, because the more of these interviews I do, the more stuff comes to my channel. I forgot what I was saying. So I'm thinking I got to get on a plane here in a little bit. Thomas Anderson, again, if you want to ask a question, write the word question. Otherwise, I might miss it. Do reptilians have souls? So you don't understand what a reptilian is if you're asking that question. So to do that, let me do this. Anybody who's new to my channel, what you want to do is you want to go onto my YouTube channel page. The way to do that, you can just go onto YouTube and type in Thunder Wizard, and up will come my channel page on YouTube. Click on that. On that, you will see the menu, and at the bottom, not at the very top, but at the menu there where it says videos and about, and then you'll see a little magnifying glass. Click on that. Another search bar will come up. That will allow you to search within my channel. So you can type in reptilians, and you'll see, I don't even know how many hours of videos I talk about the reptilians. You can find out what the reptilians really are, and then you won't have to ask that question. I appreciate the question. Your question is coming from a false assumption about what they are. Once you understand what they are, that'll answer the question you're trying to ask. The 9 herbs that Odin defeated the snake with. Again, I don't answer questions unless I've really been spending time meditating on it. I would have to get a deeper understanding of that mythology to be able to give you some good feedback. Again, I hate it when people just answer questions out of their ego because they don't want to look stupid. I don't want to talk about anything that I don't have a deep personal understanding about, and I would have to meditate on that for a while to get a better understanding. Miguel, question: I had dreams I would get full of energy and good feelings after waking up. I feel like everything that's negative goes away and I feel bliss, but then goes away. What can I do? Follow my channel, follow all my directions. I think you and I have talked before. Read my books. You can read the book. I've probably told you this before too. Go onto my courses.thunderwizard.com and click on books, or go to michaelwilliamdenney.com and you'll see my books there, and get the book The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Go get that book. Follow that book, study it, and live it. Then you'll know the answer to that question. Let's see, what else? That's it. No more questions. All right, guys. I gotta get prepared. I gotta go to the airport and do my thing in order to keep my tourist visa kosher here. So I am going to see you guys later. Perhaps I'll upload something when I get to New Zealand, but I'm only going to be there for like less than a day. In any case, that's my scoop, my friends. All right. Let's see. Do we want to talk to Arnold before we go? Should we talk to Arnold? Let's talk to Arnold before we go. Arnold's going to explain to you some very important things about twin flame. He's just going to talk for a few minutes, but he really wants to get his 2 cents in here. So let's listen to him for just a few minutes. We gotta placate the guy. Hey, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm the Shamanator. Today we're gonna talk about twin flame. Come on, watch it. Don't be a girly man. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about twin flame. What is a twin flame? Well, twin flame is when a soul is born into the universe, and it's very powerful. And what ends up happening is that because it is such a powerful soul, it splits into 2. One is the divine masculine and the other is the divine feminine. And what ends up happening is that these 2 have souls. They're very powerful, very spiritual. They come down and they become incarnated into the world of humans when they go around and they're saying to themselves, hey, what's going on here? I'm only half a person. I am very powerful, very spiritual, but I can feel the other half of me is somewhere around here. And I'm saying, hey, other half, where are you? Come on over here. We got to get some spiritual work done together. So lots of times what's happening is that you're spending much of your life seeking to bring reunion for yourself and your twin flame. Now, there's something that you need to understand about twin flame, is that there are these kinds of twin flames that are called girly men. So what happens is, if you are, let's say you are divine feminine in essence and you are born as a woman, then you are a girly girl. And if you are born like me, you are divine masculine in a very masculine body, then you are just 100% masculine, and I am a manly man, right? I am the Shamanator. But then there's this other whole group of people that are called girly men. And here's what happens to become a girly man. Let's say you are divine feminine, but you are born in a masculine body. That makes you a girly man, right? What happens if you are divine masculine, but you are born in a woman's body? That also makes you a girly man. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I'm always saying nowadays, it's good to be a girly man, except in the beginning of the video, I say, don't be a girly man. But I'm just doing that to joke. Come on, laugh at me. So, what are you going to do with your twin flame? And you need to reunite. Well, first thing you're going to do is you're going to become very spiritual. You're going to start meditating, and you're going to get lots of peace and serenity. Like me, I'm full of peace and serenity right now. What's wrong with you? Why can't you see that? And you're going to do all kinds of spiritual things so that you can become totally woke, man. You're going to become woke to your spiritual essence. You're going to feel your spirit is pumped. That's what it is to be the Shamanator. That's me. I'm pumped all the time. I am pumped in the spirit all the time. So I'm going to tell you what you got to do if you want to get reunited with your other half. You're going to walk up to that person, because when you see them, you're going to know, you're going to feel it. Oh, mein Gott in Himmel, look at you. I can feel that you are my other half. And they're going to say, what are you talking about? Why are you climbing inside my space like this? You're going to say, hey, shut up you. You're my other half. Stop screwing around. What's wrong with you? Reunite with me. And they're going to say, yeah, I see that now. You are my other half. Thank you for being so forceful about it and telling me about it. Thank you for stalking me on social media like the Facebook and on the Twitter and the Instagram. And thank you for calling me at all hours of the night. Now I am seeing the truth. I am woke now. And I am truly awoken to my spiritual self. And I'm going to reunite with you right here on the street in front of everybody. Screw them. I don't care if they like it, because we are twin flame. Now, that's what you're gonna do. But I gotta tell you something. If you really want to understand this twin flame thing, understand the union of divine masculine and feminine, I'm gonna tell you exactly what you're gonna do. And you're gonna hear me now, and you're gonna do it now. That is, you're gonna go to thunderwizard.com. When you go there, you're gonna scroll down on the right side of the page, and you're gonna see divine union of masculine and feminine. And you're going to subscribe. Why? Because I'm telling you to do so. I'm the Shamanator. Don't argue with me. It's bad for your spiritual growth. And then you are saying to yourself, when am I going to have the reunion of my twin flame? Or you're going to say, hey, Shamanator, I found my twin flame, but I want to know, is he really my twin flame or not? So you're going to go to loveastrology.thunderwizard.com, and I'm telling you, you're going to get a love reading from that guy. Because that guy, he's the true Shamanator, that Thunder Wizard guy. He taught me everything. In fact, I completely mold myself after him. He taught me how to work out. He taught me how to meditate and be spiritually calm. He told me how to point out flaws in other people. You gotta see this guy. He's really something. So you're going to go to his thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, and you're going to subscribe there too. And you're going to get onto the live question and answer. And he's going to say, what's wrong with you? How come you're asking such a stupid question? And then he's going to tell you the truth about your soul. It's going to be amazing. I'm telling you, this guy, Thunder Wizard, you got to follow him. So that's it for me today, talking about the twin flame. And I feel so much better, and I feel so much calm, and I feel love flowing through me. And you feel my love too, or I'm gonna smash you like a bug. Alright, that's it for me, the Shamanator. I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. And next time, we're gonna talk about how you want to walk up to a woman and you're gonna make her your own. Yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about next time. Alright, that's it for me. See you later. All right, so we had to have Arnold Schwarzenegger needed to come in and put in his 2 cents. See a couple of questions come in. I'll go ahead and answer them, and then I will get in the car and drive to the airport. Joe Bondsman question, is one's inner child central to healing and general spiritual development? Of course. Of course. Inner child is just another word of saying, your deepest inner, vulnerabilities. Of course, the truth is that whenever we go through any kind of trauma, there's a part of us that stays at that exact age. So if you haven't worked through trauma, like when we talked about people who had been possessed, and I had to get them to forgive who had abused them before the demon would leave, the same is true on a lesser scale. If you do not work through the trauma that has happened to you, regardless of when or what it is, there's a part of you that stays there at that age. And that's what ghosts are, by the way. You know, ghosts are walking around. You know, the guy from 1870 is still trying to find his treasure. You know, the heiress who committed suicide in 1925 is still walking off the cliff every night. That it means that that's really not the soul of the person. That's an unconscious projection of their lower self that's still running around because they didn't get over that trauma. So, you know, most people have trauma from childhood. It means they've got a little kid inside of them that's still hurt. And you have to go and deal with that. So, of course, it's central to healing. Absolutely. Don't worry about Jungle Raider. Everybody, yeah, this is just, I'm one of those guys. I do things a little differently. I'm a little controlling about how I do my Q&As, so you got nothing to worry about. Lakia Patria question. Is it possible that a being means body plus soul, reincarnated the very first time? Or do they decide the body and conditions to reincarnate, have fun? You know, it depends on the consciousness of the individual. You know, the more conscious the soul gets over time, the more conscious the death that they have, the more control they will have over their next life. If somebody is really unconscious, and this is why you guys got to drop the fear. You got to drop the fear. Is there, you know, bots out there, soulless bots out there? Is there reptilians? Do they have a soul? Are there grafted you know, that's all fear-based, childish nonsense. Those kinds of thoughts create a fear-based lifestyle, and when you die in that fear-based lifestyle, then you end up being pulled by your fears and by your false assumptions, and so you could be pulled into a body that, you know, isn't healthy, that's screwed up, because that's reflecting your internal state. That's why, you know, the best thing you can do for your eternal soul is to have as much fun as possible. And the way to do that is you got to drop the fear. And you may have to do a lot of work to take a look at yourself and see what your issues are and all that. So, but I believe that, you know, it depends on the being. If somebody's first time down here, if they're able to you know, stay connected to their spiritual essence, when they die, they'll be a lot more aware, and they'll be able to have more choice and control over what they want to do next time around. All right, but regardless, everything, whether it's done consciously or unconsciously, is your choice. The universe holds you responsible for everything, including everything that you do on an unconscious level, meaning the stuff that you're not aware of. You're held responsible for that. So that's why in this lifetime you should meditate and do spiritual work to stay conscious. That's why you should go to therapists if you've got issues and work through your childhood issues. All of that stuff has to do with your ability to move on and enjoy this life. And when you're able to enjoy this life, the more you enjoy it, the less lives you're going to have to incarnate in. Simple as that. Is the twin flame concept a victim mentality? It absolutely is. It starts from the assumption that, you know, that that number one, you were created by something, and it sort of made a mistake and made you too powerful, so it split you in half and it made you kind of a half of a person. And, you know, look, this is just a projection. All of us have these same, it's you know, it's so narcissistic. Twin flame, people talk about, I've realized I'm a twin flame. You know, that means the rest of us aren't. We've got our whole soul, so we're sort of okay. And we have these karmic relationships, but they're a twin flame because they can feel that they're missing a half. So instead of focusing on the reality that they feel incomplete, which we all do, otherwise we wouldn't seek out love. They feel incomplete so intensely that instead of acknowledging that they need to empower themselves, they create this whole projection of, I'm super spiritual and I'm a divine feminine and my divine masculine is out there. And, you know, if you go on to these YouTube channels that promote this and you read the comments, these people are miserable. They're nuts. They spend their whole life obsessing about somebody. You know, there are videos about what do you do if your twin flame gets married and blocks you. Really? You haven't gotten the clue yet that that's maybe not your twin flame? They're married to somebody else and have kids and you're watching them on, I mean, I watch them on Facebook with their kids and they're happy and I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm going to work on it on the 5th dimensional plane. I mean, it's just nonsense. Of course it's a victim mentality. We all want to have that feeling of connection. We all want to feel complete. And we all find that in love, whether that's through spirituality or through marriage or both. We all have that. And for somebody to think that their pain and their intense feelings are different from everybody else and therefore I am a twin flame is just so narcissistic and childish. How's that for an answer? Okay, that's it. All right. I'm done for today, so I gotta get on a plane. And then I'm gonna come back. Maybe I do a video while I'm there. I'll make no promises, but you find out. So whatever you do, subscribe. Come on, do it. Watch my channel. Go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe there. Come on, don't be a girly man. Do it. Go to courses.thunderwizard.com and click on every single link twice. Because you'll get a really good deal because I need to pay my taxes. Come on, what's wrong with you? Get spiritual. All right, that's it. See you guys later.